Welcome back into another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. We are now officially less than 2 weeks away from the draft. All of the 120 episodes we've recorded this year have led up to this point. We're getting close. We got another 6 episodes to record before we get there. But today we're going to continue on building our superlative, our Frankenstein players, and we're going to do edges today. So Dalton,
the Frankensteins of all Frankensteins.
the Frankensteins of
the
all
rushers.
Frankensteins. Yes. How are you feeling about this exercise?
Man, honestly, Edge was one of the tougher ones because there were so many guys I wanted to use for so many different categories. Like, there's multiple guys that you could use for bend and flexibility. There's multiple guys that I wanted to use for pass rush plan. There's multiple guys I wanted to use for explosiveness and first step, as well as run D. And so for me, like, body type was one of the only ones where I thought, like, and body type is even one where it doesn't really matter because it all depends on like what you're looking for and what you're looking at. Like we could have broken this up by body type by outside linebacker. We could have broken this up by body type by like, you know, your standard defensive end or your four, you know, your normal strong end. You could have a weak, you know, a hand in the dirt end. You could have a big, you know, 5-tech defensive end. You know, a physical freak. I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So I just picked a guy who I could see as like an old school 4-3 over defensive end, and that's kind of what I went with that. And that's what we're gonna do. But let's get into building this guy.
Let's do it. So we're gonna start out with pass rush plan. Dalton, which defensive end did you choose for the pass rush plan superlative here?
Abdul Carter. I went with Abdul Carter. He needed to go somewhere, and he could have went multiple different locations here. But I feel like what we saw from him this year, especially as the year progressed, was pretty much exponential growth in his ability to beat the guy opposite of him with his mind and with his pass rush plan. And listen, Abdul Carter, he doesn't need a million different moves. Like Mike Green and Donovan Ezraqwu, like both of those guys are, in my opinion, flashier pass rushers. But Abdul Carter just knows how to beat you. And he doesn't need all of the flash because he has that substance in his pass rush ability already. And then he has the ability to just set you up for exactly when he wants to really pin his ears back on third down. And so for me, it was a tough decision between him and one other guy. But luckily you get to talk about that guy.
Yeah. So I went with Mike Green here. So we've talked a lot about Mike Green on this podcast and how we see more of a DPR rather than a 3-down player and a guy who should go in the first round. And by all indications, it seems like he's going to go in the first round out of Marshall. But what I will say about Mike Green is he does have that deep bag of pass rush moves. Very rarely is it going to be through the chest. We saw a little bit of it at the G5 level in conference play a little bit there against some Coastal Carolina defensive or offensive tackles and some schools like that. But for the most part, he's going to beat you with finesse. But his finesse bag is nice. It's pretty nice. The spin move against Ohio State for the sack. He's got a really nice chop rip, a ghost move he can throw at you. So there's a variety of ways that Mike Green can win along the outside shoulder, which is what he prefers to do. But I think he also has that quick twitch and athleticism to set an offensive tackle up outside shoulder and then cross his face and take back that inside track too. So there's the plethora of ways that Mike Green can use his hands and get after the quarterback here. So I'm gonna go with Mike Green.
I totally agree. I see Mike Green having a very Robert Quinn-ish type NFL career where like he had 15 and a half sacks this year. That tracks. And then next year he's like, he had 3.5 sacks and he was completely MIA for most of the year. And that's just kind of the way, like, I think those guys are kind of like the J.R. Smiths of the NFL, where it's just like, they're streaky, man. They're streaky, but it is beautiful when he is hot. And that's kind of how I see his career going most likely.
Robert Quinn, Leonard Floyd. That's a great archetype
Yeah.
to lump him into there. All right, moving on. Length and power. Dalton.
Michael Williams. Michael Williams. When you are what, like 6'5", 265, and your arms go down to your shins, that's already impressive just looking at you. And he could have been the body type guy here, but nobody has that length and that natural power. And that natural power extends to the interior because he played a lot of 4-eye. He played, reduced down quite a bit. And, in that Texas game, that first Texas game, I remember him standing up against Cam Williams, and I can't think of the right guard's name right now, but double team after double team, and this 265 pounder is surviving strictly because of his athletic gifts or his anatomical gifts of the length that he's able to play with and the natural bend, flexibility, and power that he has in his frame. A really impressive player overall. You just wanted to see way more as a pure pass rusher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to go with the guy of that similar mold, and that's Shamar Stewart, who wanting more as a pass rusher has been a very common talking point of this draft cycle, even though I think, there's plenty of juice there on that side of the ball, even if it doesn't align into production. But I'm going to go with Shamar Stewart here. Again, we're talking about a guy who's 6'5", 200. He weighed at 267, probably plays closer to 270, I would assume. He played at a real 280 at Texas A&M, though. Like that's, I mean, he was like 281 at the Senior Bowl, right? And then 267 at the Combine.
I forget his
Yeah, I mean,
weigh-in
he
at
came in
Senior Bowl.
big at the Senior Bowl and then came in light at the Combine. So I'm going to go Shamar Stewart here. We're talking about length and power. My goodness, like I don't know if there's a defensive end with heavier hands in the class than Shamar Stewart. Maybe Michael Williams. The two I think go hand in hand in both a lot of their qualities and a lot of their deficiencies as players. But overall, I do think Shamar is a good deal more flexible and has a little bit more of a plan there as a pass rusher in a scheme that didn't ask him to really give him the opportunities to pin his ear back and just get after the quarterback. But again, he'll get into your chest, man. He'll send shockwaves through your chest with that power, with that length. And so this is an easy one. Both sky high floors is just coming into the league as base big ends as rookies of being able to hold their own, I think. So couldn't go wrong either way in that situation.
Yeah, it was really tough to pick body type because the two body type guys, I mean, you have off of the board with Stewart, and I'm going to have Stewart coming later. At a spot that I felt was more important to have him in there. And so I went with Landon Jackson here because I can't go an edge rushing podcast without talking about my guy, Landon Jackson, who I know you hate, but I love. He was listed at like 6'7". He ended up coming in at a little bit over 6'5", but he is a legitimate 270. And he reminds me of a Detroit Lions defensive end. Very much like Aiden Hutchinson, obviously. Like they are very similar builds overall. I actually think that he might be as flexible as Aiden Hutchinson is off of the edge. He's not as powerful as Aiden, but I do think that they have somewhat similar skill sets in the way that they win. I think a lot of people probably want to, liken him to a little bit more like an AJ Epinesa type. And I just think that Epinesa or Van Ness, I'm just talking about Iowa guys.
Yeah,
they're just stiffer. They're just stiffer than Landon Jackson is, and probably play with a little bit more natural power. I think that Jackson has that power, but I think that he needs to play a little bit more underneath of his pads when he is playing reduced down specifically. But from a pure body type standpoint, he's got the length, he's got the size, the natural anchor is there. And so for me, that's where I went with body type.
Yeah, my goal here with body type is like what edge defender in this class looks most like Michael Williams and Shamar Stewart, but their name isn't Michael Williams and Shamar Stewart, so I could use them elsewhere. And that's what I accomplished here with using Jordan Birch as my edge body type here. Both Dalton and I aren't in on Jordan Birch as a top 50 player the way that Dane is in the Beast and the way that some others are in this class. Just don't see it from a profile perspective, from a tape perspective. But he's
Nope.
big and he's athletic. And so if I'm just taking body type, I'll take big and athletic here and I'll roll with it. So that's my full explanation on using Jordan Birch. He looks like Shamar Stewart, and I use Shamar Stewart somewhere else in a different superlative. So congratulations, Jordan.
Yeah. The next one was another really difficult one. And it's most difficult because he's not a full-time pass rusher, or wasn't at Georgia, but it's Jalen Walker for explosiveness and first step. And I am extrapolating this a little bit. He has a fine first step off the edge, I think, but his real explosiveness, his real juice is his ability to teleport when he is closing on a ball carrier. That's where his production comes from. His production comes from being able to just delete space as a spy, delete space as an effort edge rusher. Like that's where he really comes into play. And so for me, this was a pretty easy one. There was one other guy who I really, really wanted to choose here, but I needed to use him for another category, so I did.
Love it. Jalen Walker does not make an appearance on my list, mainly because I'm
He's
one
a
of those
linebacker.
review people who think he's a linebacker. Yeah, and like I think Jalen Walker's even as an edge would be a really solid edge, but like I don't think. I mean, if there was a superlative, like you said, it would be first step and explosiveness. But I'm using Abdul Carter here, so I wouldn't use him for this. Like, I don't think he has the top superlative at any trait, but he's just a pretty rock solid player. But I am taking Abdul Carter here as my explosiveness and first step superlative edge rusher here, and that's just because like I don't know, man. He's like a Looney Tunes bull who sees the color red, or like who sees the color white, like a white flag being waved at, or red flag, right? That's the thing. Yeah, the Torah,
Yeah, red flag.
red flag. Who sees a red flag being waved at him, and it's just like, okay, he sees nothing but red then. And that's how I feel like Abdul Carter plays on a snap to snap basis. Like pre snap, somebody's waving the red flag at him, and he's ready to go. And he gets off the ball explosively. Time snap counts so well. He just flies off the ball for everything he does well. Like that first step is lightning fast. He just explodes off the football. So again, Abdul Carter is the number 2 player, I think, on both of our boards. So like he could have gone anywhere in this exercise, but I'm taking him here for explosiveness and first step.
Yeah, he's absolutely incredible. Bend and flexibility. This is the guy I really wanted to use for explosiveness and first step, mostly just because of that Alabama game. That Alabama tape is unbelievable when it comes to him timing the snap and just their right tackle having absolutely no chance. And that's James Pierce. The bend and flexibility is everything that you want out of an edge rusher. There are only, in my opinion, a couple of guys in this class who are the Gumby style rushers. He is one of them. I think Mike Green is another one of those guys. And then the man who you chose for this superlative is, in my opinion, the third one. And the one who is being talked about, I think, the least at this point, because of, I mean, and we've heard stuff about James Pierce and some of the not off field necessarily, but work ethic, character stuff with him. Princely Milan, who you have picked here, also has some of that. But talk about the bend with Princely.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Princely here. I do think Princely has a decent power profile too, because he has good length as well. But I'm thinking about
we've always just been waiting for Princely, right?
Yeah, and I think that's just going to be a trend still. It's been 5 years, 3 years of draft eligibility play.
Really good at the end of the year this year.
He was
really good.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of that Georgia game where like that left tackle didn't have any sort of hips to match his pad level, and he just burned the outside track that Georgia game. You mentioned raw flexibility, and I think James Pierce is a decent choice as well. But for me, Yellen, I think I see a lot more in his ankles than in his hips, which might be a difference for some of these other guys. But I think his ankle flexion is really nice to be able to play way outside of his frame and to lower that pad level around the outside shoulder, compared to just being able to like contort Like I think the best example, I mean, obviously the best example of this is always going to be Myles Garrett, right? At 6'4", 270 to be able to like, I mean, that guy plays at a right angle, in an inverted right angle, which is just like not normal for a guy his size. And that's like unbelievable hip fluidity where I don't think um, Princely has that, but it is that ankle flexion to still be able to reduce his surface area and play outside of his frame. And with a pretty low pad level coming around the outside track there. So I'm taking Uman Mielen here for my bend and flexibility rusher. And of course, Mike Green's already off the board for me as well, so I couldn't
Yeah.
double up and Mike Green.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad selection at all. And it's funny when we saw the listed weights this year. I think we both might have had him as our body type guy
I
in
think we did.
the first step because I mean, like 6 foot, like 265 pounds, 34-inch arms. Like that's what you want in edge. And then he came in at like 247 or something like that. And it's like, oh yeah. But like you said, the power profile at 250 is not bad with Princely. It's just everything else that you're just wondering about with him. One thing I don't wonder about is the projection as a base run defender for Shamar Stewart. Run defense. I couldn't think of anybody else here. And it's mostly because I had to use another guy for length and power here. And I felt like I needed to use him there.
Yeah.
But I just think with those hands, with that size, with that explosiveness, you're looking at somebody who, in my opinion, like I can't think of an outcome worse than like a Jadeveon Clowney. It was just a rock solid run defender at the NFL level who can collapse the pocket with a power profile, with explosiveness, and just may never really get it as a pass rusher. But he's going to be a really solid second option for a team. And I think in this class, with the explosive profile that he has as a one-of-one athlete, literally, I think you just bet on that. And I think you bet on that because I think he's more flexible than Jadeveon. And I also believe that we have come a long way when it comes to private positional coaches and the ability to bring these types of athletes along quickly at the NFL level and provide them the education and wherewithal and practice of building a pass rush plan and executing that more frequently on Sundays.
I agree. I think Shamar Stewart's just scratching the surface of what he can become. But even like talking about Shamar or Jadeveon Clowney, like if Shamar Stewart gave you a half, like gave you 5 9 sack seasons, you'd be like, yeah, that's really good. Jadeveon Clowney's flirted with 10 sacks 4 times in his career. Like he's never hit the ceiling of that number 1 overall pick. I don't think that people expected based off of the South Carolina tape in that Michigan bowl game where he forced that fumble by himself by just exploding into the backfield. Like, but I mean, he has 58 career sacks. Again, 4 seasons where he's flirting with double-digit sacks. Like, you will take that. If you could tell me that you could get that in the top 10, I would take that in the top 10 every time. You just never know in the NFL draft. So if you could guarantee that production, like, yeah, take that. Yeah, for me, we swapped Mykel Williams and Shamar Stewart for length and power and run D here. I'm taking Mykel Williams for run defense here. And it's honestly a lot of the same reasons that you took him for length and power. That Texas game where like he is completely at extension, pressing Cam Williams out of his chest while also anchoring in like a right guard. That's extremely invaluable to have as a rookie, even as a big end. It'd be nice if he was able to play across from somebody with some pass rush chops early on. Like, I mean, he's not going to fall. Like the Browns aren't taking him second overall, but like being able to play for Myles Garrett and play that big end role while Myles Garrett just wreaks havoc would be an unbelievable fit for him or Stewart. I think the Bears, where Montez Sweat can get after a little bit and he can play opposite there, is a pretty fun fit for Mykel or Shamar, to be honest. Like, but again, I've mentioned so much about how I think he's stiff. I don't think he can win outside shoulder. What this dude can freaking do, though, is he's an immovable object against the run game. He can anchor in doubles. He is a day one ready-made starter at big end because you're going to get a high floor out of this guy. So I'm going Michael Williams as my run defender here to finish out my edge.
Yeah, and honestly, this one really comes down to what the people prefer when it comes to where we place these guys on who won the build of the Frankenstein defensive end here.
Mm-hmm.
Pass rush plan for me: Abdul Carter, length and power, Michael Williams, body type, Landon Jackson, explosiveness and first step, Jalen Walker, bend flexibility, James Pierce, run D, Shamar Stewart. You had for the pass rush plan, Mike Green, length and power, Shamar Stewart, body type, Jordan Birch. That's where you might have beat me by going with the dude who's like 6'3", 290.
6'4", yeah, he's like 6'4", 285, something like that. Yeah, he's a big dude.
Explosiveness and first step, Abdul Carter, bend flexibility, Princely Milan, and run D, Michael Williams. I think we both built a Myles Garrett. and
that's the goal, right? Yeah, that's the goal.
Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
We will be back tomorrow to build a defensive tackle. And this one we are very excited about because it is a very, very interesting defensive tackle group.
It
and
is.
I think we I think we've kind of underrated this group while simultaneously overrating certain players in this group and forgetting about others.
Yeah,
But we will
I
talk
agree.
about all of that tomorrow. Corey, do you have anything else to say to the people before we get out of here?
That's it, man. We got a few more. We got defensive tackles, corners, and safeties to build still. But outside of that, man, we're getting there. Draft week, we've already got our content schedule laid out. We're gonna do a mock draft, and then we're gonna stay. I mean, we record usually
I'm gonna wake up
Thursday nights anyway. Yeah, we'll figure out the late night there. But Dalton will wake up to the results. I'll be already up and probably 16 articles deep into the draft at that point. But we're gonna recap that night, and I might try to even publish it that night as well for people who are gonna stay up like freaks and do everything else. But yeah, we've got it mocked out here next week, and then we'll do the same thing Friday because it's Friday night again too. So that's gonna be our content schedule. We'll come back on that following Monday and record for Tuesday's episode about day 3 and overall results, and do some recap episodes that following week there. So, and then we're heading back into the off season. So I'm sure we'll talk about it, but there's a chance we might cut down to 3 episodes a week in the off season or something like that. And we'll figure something out there to give ourselves a little bit of a break as well. It's been a grind this season. So we recorded, I think, Dalton, I think we're going to be at over 130 by the time the draft happens. So
that's impressive.
That's a good number. But until we do defensive tackles tomorrow, I'm Corey. That is Dalton. And this has been the Daft on Draft podcast. Goodbye.